What is going on, football fans? It's your boy, Gsluke, here with a Thursday night football preview for tomorrow night's divisional matchup between the Lions and the Packers. Going to break down what you need to know to go into tomorrow's slate, feeling like you can go out there and build some profitable DFS lineups. We'll talk about some of the injuries to keep an eye on, a few game scripts I think may play out, and how you can attack tomorrow's large field tournaments in a plus EV way, get some differentiation, and hopefully, like I said, find your name towards the top of some of those leaderboards. So a lot to talk about with tomorrow's heated matchup. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. We'll start off with a look at some of the injuries here to worry about tomorrow. So first off, two major injuries for the Packers side. They've got Aaron Jones is questionable, also Christian Watson, both key pieces for that offense. Watson, of course, looking to make his debut here in 2023. So maybe not as huge a question mark over there with Watson as we have a 3-week sample size of what to expect without him. But Aaron Jones last week out of the lineup had a massive impact on how the Packers approached the slate. They were much more pass heavy. It was a lot more passes to wide receivers there in week 3. And if we get him out once again, which at this point I think it's pretty close to a 50-50 proposition, well, we'd have to consider the Packers a little bit more of a pass first kind of offense than what we traditionally are used to seeing them as. Of course, with Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon as that 1B out there at the running back position, they usually run the ball 25 to 30 plus times a game. But last week, they were not able to accomplish that, right? And that was despite playing in a positive game script. So that's something that I'm keeping an eye on, right? Whether Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, both are going to suit up there. And on the opposite side, we also have David Montgomery as questionable too. As of right now, I would say that all three probably have at least a 50% chance of playing. David Montgomery maybe closer to like 60-65%, as we've had a few reports from beat reporters. The coach himself say that he expects Montgomery to play, or is at least on track to go out there and play on Thursday. But all of them could have a massive impact on how each team plays. Some of the obvious beneficiaries of injuries, but of course be AJ Dillon for the Packers, but also potentially even a Patrick Taylor who could be suiting up if Aaron Jones is out. With Christian Watson's injury, like I said, a little bit more of a sample size there, but players like a Luke Musgrave get a boost, Jaden Reed, starter Romeo Doubs, of course, but even the Dontarian Wicks down here, the Samori Torres, the Antoine Greens, or even Malik Heath, if you want to get real nasty down there at $200. If these guys can suit up, if there's an extra roster spot available and they're out there on the starting 53, well, you might want to consider them out there for your lineup. So injury is always a huge part of DFS, but the main edge out there is adjusting for some of these injuries. When we get that last second injury news there on Thursday night, a lot of projection systems, a lot of people doing their modeling, usage rates, etc., aren't able to account for these differences at the last second. So having a game plan on how you're going to handle them is absolutely key, right? Thinking ahead, knowing what you're going to do if you get a certain piece of injury news is how you go out there and you make yourself a winning player. If you're just reacting to news, if you're not thinking ahead, if you're somebody that's changing your lineups after every piece of injury news that you have, well, you're not doing this thing correctly, right? You need to be thinking about these things ahead of time and how you want to handle them. So with that being said, tonight's slate, or say tomorrow night's slate, I guess depending on when you're listening to this, is going to be one that you want to play differently depending on the tournament that you're in, right? Depending on what kind of DFS contest that you're entering. If you're entering a cash, a smaller field GPP, I totally get the close game script. They have a 1.5 point spread here, two divisional teams that usually play some pretty tough football. So 3 3s, 4 2s in either direction are going to be extremely popular. And honestly, I get why they're going to be extremely popular tomorrow. But in cash contests, smaller field GPPs, that's okay, right? You can live with that. You can still get some differentiation out there, still get enough leverage to the field in those sort of contests to cash, get that performance you're looking for. But in large field GPPs, where I'm going to be playing a lot of my exposure here, I'm going to avoid that. Right? Everyone, when you have a 1.5 point spread, everyone, when you have one of these divisional, just games that are in prime time, everyone just wants them to be this, close contested affair that's extremely fun, exhilarating for the fans, and we don't always get that. So 5-1s in either direction, or even 4-2 onslaught scripts that are a little bit more outside the box, or how I'm going to approach this slate. So when we go player by player here in a second, just know that we're going to talk about how you can potentially deploy these players in a more leveraged way, right? A little bit more of a differentiated way than what I expect the rest of the industry to do. So if you're playing in cash, I think both quarterbacks are a must. You probably want to play an Amon-Ra St. Brown if you're playing in cash, and then one more of these middle tier players, right? You don't want to overthink it. It's a pretty straightforward slate if you're playing it from the cash perspective. You probably want both quarterbacks. You probably want at least one pass catcher from each team. And then there are enough players down here in the cheap tier range to get the job done that, especially with injuries, we could have even more value there tomorrow night. That in cash, smaller field GPPs, I'm okay with that script. That's a 3-3, right? Or a 4-2, right? We already talked about that. But if you're going to play in large field GPPs and try and play Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe you got to get a little bit different about it, right? So you still want to play him with Jared Goff, right? You don't want to go too crazy there, but maybe it's in a 5-1 Lions stack, right? Maybe it's in a 4-2 Lions stack, where rather than going after some of the obvious options to pair with him, right, maybe you leave a little bit of salary on the table and then take 2 running backs for the Lions, right? Maybe Montgomery suits up, you play a Gibbs and a Montgomery with an Amon-Ra St. Brown. So almost all your salary, right, would be up here with these elite tier Lions, right? You could have an Amon-Ra in the lineup, you could have a Jared Goff there. And then rather than taking, right, the one buyback on the Packers that everyone else is going to do, right? A lot of people, right, if you're taking like an Amon-Ra, a Jared Goff, they're going to try and get at least one premium player from the Packers. Maybe it's a Jordan Love, maybe it's one of the, a Christian Watson and Aaron Jones. Maybe you don't take any of them, right? Maybe you just assume that it's the Lions going out there on the road and kicking the Packers' butt out there, and that's how you get to your differentiation with Amon-Ra captain. So I think with a lot of these elite tier players, right, you want to have them in your player pool. It's just more so about how you're going out there and using them. Same thing with Aaron Jones. If he suits it up, he'll probably have a lighter load than he's used to having out there, but is also going to be relatively low owned. So you could get to him for some differentiation. Love both quarterbacks. Probably don't have to sell you on either one. You could play him at flex. You could play him at captain. I'm probably going to be at least at the field on both players. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously projects very well with the David Montgomery injury, but we'll have to see if Montgomery suits up or not. If he does, he's going to eat into Gibbs's exposure quite a bit. And honestly, the ownership is going to reflect that too. So he's somebody we're probably going to have to kind of come back to tomorrow night, because if the ownership dips low enough, right? If we get Gibbs at sub 20% ownership at flex, if we get him at like 5% ownership at the captain spot, right? Even with Montgomery playing, right? We're assuming that Montgomery is not going to be 100%, even if he suits it up. I think it makes Gibbs an even better play if we see Montgomery play. And if Montgomery gets rolled out, right, Gibbs, his projection is probably going to rise too, undoubtedly will, but his ownership could get closer to like 40% at flex. It could be like 15, 20% at the captain spot, which I think would make him a worse play, right? Even though his projected points would go up significantly, just the game theory angle would get so much worse with playing a Jahmyr Gibbs. So just things to consider, right, when you're building your lineups tomorrow night. In terms of your wide receivers on the Packers, Dobbs is going to play a factor, whether Christian Watson plays or not. The main effect of Christian Watson being out would be some of these value tier options, right? Musgrave would be really good point per dollar value. Same thing with Jaden Reed down here. Dontavian Wicks would be one of the more popular players on the slate if we don't have Christian Watson. A guy who's gotten over 40 receiving yards the last 2 weeks. If he returns, right, Wicks is probably going to be a little bit over-owned, right? He's the wide receiver 4 out there for the Packers. If Watson is going to play, just a lot of moving parts out here that we're going to have to keep track of. And, I think it's going to lead to quite a big edge tomorrow, because if we have 1-2 of those players rolled out, I don't think people are going to react to this in nearly the fashion they should. The kickers are live in this kind of matchup. I have no problems getting to them. It's Green Bay, but it's the fall, right? We're not dealing with any sort of severe winter weather. The defenses, especially because I'm looking at 5-1 stacks, I think make a ton of sense out here for tomorrow's slate. Same thing with the kickers, right? Anytime you're playing some wacky stacks, even if it's more differentiated 4-2 stacks like I'm going for, or 5-1s in either direction. These kickers and defenses are going to have to be a huge part of that pool. Patrick Taylor without Aaron Jones could be in play. Same thing with Craig Reynolds if we don't have David Montgomery. I love Marvin Jones Jr. for potential GPP options. He plays for the Lions. He's a down-the-field wide receiver. So if he gets one touch for a touchdown, of course, could find himself in the optimal that way. Zonovan Knight, if we don't have David Montgomery, also likely to be active and could also see touches for that Lions offense. You always have the backup tight end narrative. So we've got Brock Wright there, who I think is going to see snaps regardless of the game script. Josiah DeGuara, he's a fullback / tight end for the Packers. You'd always play him. And then if you want to get real crazy about it, if we don't have any Christian Watson, Samori Toure might be active, might see some snaps. And I guess the same thing with Antoine Green and Malik Heath. These are unlikely players to actually even suit up tomorrow night. But if for some reason Watson is out and we do have one of these players active, maybe you play him in 1 or 2 of your 150 lineups, right? Take a pure flyer play on somebody that might catch, one ball for 40, 50-yard touchdown. And that's how you break a slate. That's how you win a large field GPP at relatively low ownership. And the point being here, guys, that we have a lot of data available, right? We have these projections available that a lot of people are using to build lineups right now, but without a lot of the information that we need, right? Without knowing whether Aaron Jones is going to suit up, right? Without knowing whether Christian Watson is going to suit up, we don't really know what to do with this slate, which is why I think you guys need to be thinking about the slate beforehand, right? My player pool, I post over there on the Patreon, of course. You can see on here it's blacked out, but I don't even have it set as of right now, right? Even if you were on the Patreon, right, there wouldn't be anything posted there, is I don't think you can make any decisions right now in full earnest, right? I don't think you can do so and feel good about it not knowing these injury situations. So personally, I think if we get any of these players out, right, I'm going to be going to a lot of their backups and lineups because I don't think the ownership is going to get there on those players like it should there tomorrow afternoon. And furthermore, right, I'm going after the more fringe outcomes, right? I'm not playing those 3-3, those 4-2 stacks that I think are going to be extremely popular. Again, if I was playing in cash, smaller field tournament, I wouldn't have a problem doing so. It's just that's not the kind of contest that I play in, right, when I play DFS. And I'm definitely not going to be playing in tomorrow night. So that would be my recommendation for the slate, is just cater your lineups towards the kind of contest that you're playing in, and of course have that game script in mind, right? If you're playing for a Lions onslaught, take sometimes 2 running backs in the same lineup, right? Maybe you don't even have to have a Jared Goff in a Lions onslaught lineup, right? Maybe you go a little bit more rushing heavy there. Those defenses, those kickers, I think anytime we get those like 1.5 point spreads, I just love getting into the kickers and defenses. People are going to, avoid them a little bit more because of this closely contested game that's expected to happen. And how many times out there, guys, do we have these primetime games that are hyped up? They're supposed to be a close, competitive affair, and then they just fall flat on their face, right? They don't end up being all that it was hyped up to be. So that's how I would approach the slate. Just know that a lot of people are going to build those 3-3s and those 4-2s and actively look to get off them. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the Thursday night football preview. Hopefully you feel a little bit more prepared to go out there, get after some lineups, and are ready to go out there and take home a few GPPs. On your way out of here, go ahead, smash that like button for me, and also comment down below who you've got as your top captain. If you're able to guess the top captain and within 1 to 2 points of his actual captain score, we'll go ahead and give you a free month of the Patreon. So go ahead, comment down below who you're taking as your optimal captain, and let me know how many points you think he's going to score. Until then, best of luck with those lineups tomorrow night, any bets you're going with for the game, and I hope to see a lot of your names towards the top of the leaderboards. We'll be doing plenty of content here. Last week I was out in Vegas enjoying the game, the Steelers going out there beating the Raiders. This time around, we've got the Ryder Cup action to worry about, and of course week 4 of the NFL season. So for all the content you see used in these videos, all of my player pool, different notes I'm using for Showdown, main slate, all the golf content that I post, check out the Patreon page as well. Of course, we're doing the giveaway out there for the Patreon, free month of that, but if you want access to it yourself, you don't want to win a giveaway to get access to my projections, check out the link in the description. There's different tiers you can join on there. You can cater your experience to get all the content that you're looking for, whether it's for DFS DFS or Showdown. We have prop content posted both for NFL and for golf over there. You can pick exactly what you want and nothing more, right? So you're not getting needless posts out there, no clutter in your inbox, and you're only paying for what you're using there too. It goes a long way with helping the channel and gives you all of that insight that you're looking for there too. Until next time, best of luck like I was saying before, and I'll catch you guys later for the content throughout the week.